Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Bible. And today we're doing a review of the movie I'm Not Ashamed, the story of Rachel Scott, who was one of the victims in the Columbine shooting. So, yeah, it was a really long cinema ride for me. And I live in, as of this video, I'm in Toronto, and I had to go all the way across the city to go see this movie. But well worth it. So, just to give you a summary of what the movie is, it's produced by Pureflix, who did God's Not Dead, as well as several other movies. Do You Believe? God's Not Tattoo, and other films of that nature. And this is based on the true story in 1999 of the Columbine shooting of Rachel Scott, focusing on her life and her story, and based on the journals that she wrote, which became a book that her mother published called "I'm Not Ashamed," and became a series of messages that were used as well back in the late in the '99 and early 2000s to share her story. And the movie covers basically the year leading up to the shooting, and so it starts with this movie is rated 14A or PG. It's hard to know. I think the movie theater I had said it 14A, but if that's true, then that would make sense because it's just the subject matter and maturity matter. It's probably PG-13 in the States. Because of the subject matter, and that would be for themes of violence as well as the teenagers drinking and smoking in this movie. There's a lot of smoking in this movie. I've never seen this much smoking in a movie in a long, long time, and so it was rated that way for those reasons and the violence toward the end of the movie. It starts off appropriately enough, I think, with a newsreel footage of the Columbine shooting, and then we go back into her story. And in terms of her story, you see her as a 9-year-old, and then you see her, and that's when and you see her dad divorcing her mom at that point. And then afterwards, you now cut to her as a teenager, and you see her life as a teenager, and she's kind of doing what typical young teens would do, is she wants to go with her friends and hang out with her friends, so she goes to a pool party, and then gets caught by her mom, and grounds her by sending her off to a farm to her aunt's house. While she's at her aunt's, she has an encounter with God at a church service, although I'm wondering if in the real life it was like a youth rally or something as opposed to just a church service. That'd be curious to know. And then when she comes back, she tries to live out and walk her life, but she struggles because in terms of just wanting acceptance from her friends. This boy she likes, who's involved in her drama class, and but she also makes friends with a homeless guy, and brings him to church. And then in the midst of this all as well, you have these two kids who later on we know that they're going to be the ones who did the shooting. We kind of see them enough to know their subplot, and then of course it leads to, and without spoiling the movie, I would say it basically leads into this whole getting closer and closer and closer, and because you know the ending, I think it becomes more gripping because of that. So I found this really emotionally moving movie. I'm a very sensitive guy, but maybe because it's based on a true story, I think the writing was really a lot more solid than what I've seen in Pureflix productions that they've done before. None of the actors are actors that have any familiarity with, but so I don't know their names or anything in terms of like recognized names. I think one of them was supposed to be from one of the Duck Dynasty daughters or something, but otherwise all these actors are pretty no-name actors. But the lead girl does a terrific job and portraying Rachel as someone who's vibrant and full of life and really has this internal struggle. Another thing I really appreciate about this movie is that they don't demonize anyone who's not Christian, and they try and go even out of their way to suggest that Rachel is not trying to convert people for the sake of converting people and tell them. And I think they do a good job in that sense. For those reviewers who say sort of think that this movie is kind of using this persecution complex about, I don't think that's fair a judgment, because the movie itself even says that these two guys are they're after her because of her faith, and in one scene, basically these two guys confronts the Columbine shooters, confronts her and says, well, you think you're better than us, type of thing, and so they're after her because of her faith, and they say, you're just like the others, you're just like the other so-called Christians, and I think that in a real life scenario, in terms of the fact that is true in terms of other witness accounts, that she did ask, they did ask, do you believe in God, and she was shot for that, and that this antagonism that they had towards her as a Christian was probably why they killed her. But I don't think the movie does not say that everyone in Columbine was shot because they were Christian. It does not even suggest that. If the movie has one fault in the movie, I would say that for this, maybe because of the writers and not knowing what the real story of those two Columbine shooters are, it sort of simplifies it that they're playing video games, violent video games, which was a big controversy at the time which is true. That is part of their story, is that when that happened, people blamed video games, blamed media, and they said, well, what part does the media and video games and movies and all that play into this? And the movie just basically portrays them as playing video games, and they hate people, and they're going to take out their frustrations on people, because, and it does suggest that they've been bullied as well. It does at least suggest, I think, that they've been bullied and that they're taking it out more because of that. And I think that, at least my reading of the movie, I don't think they're trying to simplify to say, God, kids played video games, therefore shooting. I think they're saying that these were warped up kids who were bullied, and they kind of, this is what they did, is they played video games, and this is where all their life went to. And I thought the movie does a really effective job with even the bullies. I think that they could have made it a little bit more stronger, like with their backstory or something. But the movie's really called "I'm Not Ashamed." It's about Rachel Scott, not about them. So to be fair to that, also, and to be fair, is that that Rachel does have non-Christian friends, and she's portrayed as a three-dimensional character in the sense that she, even in the sense that in the first part of the story, she becomes a born-again Christian, and then she still goes to drinking and still has friends with these people, and there's even conversation where she's friends with them and she's not talking about her faith. She's just trying to be nice to them. She's just trying to be nice to people and show compassion. And I thought that the argument that this movie is trying to exploit the tragedy for faith is not fair, because of the fact that ultimately, in the end, this was this girl's story. She wrote these journals. They are real. It was her expression of faith, and then she died, and so this was her journey. And the movie's focusing on that, and the movie doesn't really focus on any of the other Columbine shootings. Spoiler alert: we do see her die. We mostly see her die. They do show the gun pointed to her head, which is pretty, from Pure standards, like, whoa, this is the Dark Knight compared to any Pureflix film that I've ever seen. And so they did a good job of portraying that. But if you really were to break down and analyze it, they really are showing just her death, and then everything else is done sort of quickly in a newsreel. They don't. So if you're looking for this movie to be about the Columbine shooting itself, that's more of a side plot. It's the bookend of the beginning and the end. It's not the plot of the movie. This is not Escape, Olympus Has Fallen, or Die Hard, or one of those movies, but or a 9/11 terrorism movie. It's not even really mostly a Columbine movie. It's about her life. The, and without, and I think that it's worth seeing as a movie. It was for me. It was emotionally gripping. It touched my emotions about how this girl lived a life and the fact that these were real people. I know that they might have changed a little bit things for the sake of privacy, but these are real events. And the way that this girl, the way that they portray this girl, I thought was really well done. But the way they portrayed teenagers, I thought was really well done. I mean, I know Smallville is only a superhero show, but like, and Buffy and all that, but I've seen dramas that are about teenagers, and this felt real to me, at least. These teenagers felt real in a way that God's Not Dead teenagers, and one thing that I think that for review sake would be to mention is that in God's Not Dead you have the guy, the kid who God's not dead, and then all of a sudden everyone in his class stands up and says God's not dead. But in this movie you have her saying, I love Jesus and here's my faith, and everyone's going, I'm bored, and why am I in this class, and why can't we get it over? And that's an honest reaction, and I thought that was wonderful that they showed that, as opposed to just showing everyone smiling except for the one guy. And so I thought that this movie tried its best to show things in an honest light without demonizing anybody who's not a Christian, or suggesting that I don't even think that they suggest that anyone who's not a Christian. It's nothing like that. They basically, it's about life. It's about teenage life, and it's about this girl and her journey and her friends. And her friends make mistakes, and some of them make really big mistakes in terms of how they treat her. But it's refreshing to see these relationships be three-dimensional, and I highly recommend this as a movie experience. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Maybe from if you were a movie critic review in terms of just like, why is this not a 10 out of 10? The reasons why I would give is because probably you can do a little bit better of pacing, maybe, and maybe even make these bad guys really get into their heads a bit. But otherwise, great movie. You will be moved by it, I think, if you're a Christian. If you're not a Christian, I think that you're not going to be offended by it. I think that if you go with an open eyes, that this is just a girl's story, you will at least respect the story and say, you know what, kudos on you, Pureflix, for producing a movie where the teenagers are three-dimensional beings. So I hope that you enjoy. I'm not ashamed. I know that it only got a limited release in the States, but I think that this movie is going to be one that plays several times in movie cinema and churches again, and on DVD. And I would also say that for those who are youth pastors or youth groups, this is a movie to go take your kids to, or to show in a theater, because it's going to be a discussion one, and it's also a real story. And that the powerfulness of not just the real story, like I said, the three-dimensionalness of these actors will make it more compelling for any audience as well. But be warned, it is the Dark Knight's even not a fair term, because it is a real story. But it's like I said, it's PG-13 for a reason. It's a very intense story, not so much violent, but emotionally intense and gripping. Have a nice night. Thank you.